Welcome to another episode of Gage's Favorites, the YouTube series where I, Gage, choose my favorite knife in a particular shape from the available knives we have in stock at our store called Sharp Knife Shop. In today's episode, we're talking all about the Sujihiki. So if you're unfamiliar with the Sujihiki, it is a Japanese slicing knife. The word itself translates to flesh slicer, so quite aptly named. These guys are double beveled and they are great for slicing both cooked and raw proteins. They differ a little bit from the Yanagiba, which is the more traditional Japanese slicing knife, in that they are double beveled or angle in from both sides, whereas a Yanagiba is going to only angle in from the one side, and then the back side will actually be concave. Well, I would argue that if you're just looking for a knife for sashimi or like really thinly slicing fish, I would recommend looking at a Yanagiba. But if you're looking for something that's kind of a little more all-purpose for your slicing tasks, you're slicing roasts and cooked proteins in addition to raw proteins, the Sujihiki is a great knife to look at. They're also a little less prone to chipping as well, so if you're planning to use it for like barbecue and stuff like that, great option. So, enough talking. What is Gage's favorite Sujihiki? Well, it is the 270 millimeter Makoto Kurosaki Sujihiki. This guy is gorgeous, gorgeous knife from the older brother of one of our favorite blacksmiths here, Yu Kurosaki. These guys are made from R2, which is a quick powdered stainless tool steel with really high Rockwell hardness of around 64, I believe. I'd have to double check that, and I'm sure Jake will do a little thing here in post for us, make sure I'm not lying to you. It has this beautiful tsushime or hand hammered finish on it. The clad line on this guy looks really cool as well. So while it is a stainless steel knife, it is still sanmai, or has 3 layers of steel, 2 outer layers being softer stainless, and then the core layer being that R2, which is a harder stainless steel. So great edge retention on these guys. Relatively thin at the spine, but some of the Sujihiki that you come across in the market might be a little like delicate feeling. That's another reason I picked this guy up, was because it does not feel delicate at all. It feels like it's gonna perform at a really high level. I know it will because I've used it, but it doesn't feel at the same time like if I decide I need to like kind of flex it a little bit, that it's gonna snap in half or that it's gonna like remain bent or anything like that. Not to be confused with a European style boning knife flex. Like, it's not a super flexy knife by any means. It's quite stiff, but I can flex it a little bit and I don't feel, again, like I'm gonna snap it in half when I do so. So that's especially important if, for instance, you're using the knife to break down a whole salmon. Again, like I touched on in the intro a little bit earlier on, it's less prone to chipping than like a Yanagiba, for instance. So if you're going down the spine to fillet your salmon, these guys are totally gonna be able to handle those little bones as you're going through. And it's long enough that when you're cleaning things up at the end, or maybe you're portioning your salmon, you can make those really long drawing strokes and get those perfect slices. The butchery can be a bit of a messy job, right? You're dealing with like raw meat, and oftentimes your hands get a little gunked up, so it can be difficult to, like wipe the knife down immediately after use. So a stainless steel for my Sujihiki is great for that. I don't have to worry too much about it. Of course, you still want to be in the habit of wiping it down and always grabbing it with a clean and dry hand, but it's not going to punish you like an ironclad knife would if you make a mistake and forget to wipe it down. The length also, you'll find Sujihiki in many different lengths, from as short as like 180 millimeters, which I mean could almost be considered a petty at that point, but they'll range all the way up to about 300. So this guy is on the longer end of the spectrum, and that's just gonna help make my slicing life even easier. The longer the blade is, the longer the stroke I can make, and the less of a sawing motion I have to make, and that's of course gonna help me avoid any tearing of the meat as I'm going through. And of course, like we talked about, it's super sharp, so that's gonna help us avoid any meat tearing, which is terrible, of course. Jake was just telling me before we shot this video that he was doing a bunch of prep over the weekend for his dinners over the next week, which is awesome. And he was doing like really thinly sliced raw chicken breasts, so that when he comes home after a long day working at Sharp for his for his, dickhead boss Gage. He can quickly fire up some dinner, and he's got everything ready to go. Chicken finely sliced, so he can just toss it in the pan. Maybe you're, for instance, doing like flank steak or something like that, or just a regular old steak, and you need something nice to slice her up before you bring it out to all your friends and family. A Sujihiki like this guy is going to be great. Before we finish off here, guys, I just want to touch on a couple more things that I like specifically about this knife. So in addition to the awesome steel type, the really cool aesthetic, it's got a beautiful feel in the hand to it, and the fit and finish is really top notch on this knife and all of Makoto-san's stuff. So where the tang and handle come together is perfectly done, I would say. No gaps, bumps, or spaces there. This handle is a little unique in that it's got a maple handle and a blonde pakkawood ferrule. Not something that we see very often, so looks really, really cool. It's octagonal in shapes, so suitable for righties and lefties. Just overall, like, really stellar knife. Makoto is a expert sharpener, so this guy is crazy sharp right out of the box, like some of the best out of the box edges that we've ever come across here. And it's just like a really super high performing knife. I don't know what else to say. I guess in addition to all of that, it's another like really high value knife, so it's certainly not a cheap knife by any means, but in comparison to some of the other Sujihikis out there, you're definitely gonna save some coinage when you pick up one of these bad boys. So there you have it, guys, the Sujihiki, my favorite being the Makoto Kurosaki R2 270mm Sujihiki. Thank you so much for watching, and stay sharp.